YouTube, once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast talking Auburn football. In the Deep South, college football is absolutely a way of life. Go ahead and like this video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle. Auburn is in week 5 of the college football season and in a very, very good position, might I add, because let's just say at the beginning of the 2019 season, and as we talked about in spring football, we did understand that Auburn had a very, very interestingly difficult schedule. And we knew a lot of things had to fall into place for Auburn to become successful. You talk about the game in Oregon, where Auburn struggled a little bit in the first half and really started to impose their will against Oregon and create some opportunities to give themselves a chance to win down in Arlington, Texas, as Auburn won that game 27-21 after being down 21-6 midway through the third quarter. Things started to kind of look like Auburn might succumb to the Oregon Ducks, but took advantage of some opportunities. The defense absolutely played lights out. Game number 1, Auburn wins the football game 1-0 going into Tulane and Kent State, which we all thought would be manageable games for the Auburn Tigers. And now we have it as Auburn used a, very, very good defensive performance, and in spots look very good offensively. The offensive line started to improve. Bo Nix starting to really show some confidence as we reach the stretch that we are now. Auburn welcomes Mississippi State this coming weekend. Has been kind of a nemesis type game for the Auburn Tigers, but this is a great opportunity for Auburn to continue down that stretch. Now, one thing that I thought about, I did a video earlier about Bo Nix and his, ready for him to have a breakout game. I think things are starting to kind of sort of click for the Auburn Tigers, and getting some receivers back, a little bit more healthy. Definitely love the fact that Anthony Schwartz is back. And he's talking confidently, he's performing confidently, and he feels very good about the wide receiver core and what their effect can be down the stretch in the SEC. Now, one guy that I really like to talk about, I remember, early, say mid-January, it was announced that Derrick Brown, the defensive lineman for Auburn, All-American potential, All-SEC potential, probably could have gone in an early round in the NFL last year, decides to come back. That, started to get the excitement wheels rolling, because let's just say if Derrick Brown doesn't return, and even Nick Cole doesn't return, and Marlon Davidson doesn't return, we're talking about a different type of conversation for Auburn this year. One thing that I would like to note, though, is as great as Derrick Brown's potential is, in my opinion, I think he's been somewhat inconsistent. Let me tell you what I mean. One week, Derrick Brown would look like, say, Nick Fairley or, some of the great defensive linemen of Auburn's past. And then other games, you won't really hear from him. I think that consistency from Derrick Brown is going to be key for him being successful. I think that reckless abandon and that, that total mental level of domination has to be within Derrick Brown each particular week. This game against Mississippi State is going to be very interesting to see which Derrick Brown is going to stand up. Because I think about it when I talk about Derrick Brown is, will the real Derrick Brown stand up? Is Derrick Brown a truly dominant defensive lineman? Is he truly a consistently dominant defensive lineman? Or are we going to see that level of domination every now and then? Because let's just say, for example, if Derrick Brown can at least somewhat consistently duplicate what he possessed against the Texas A&M Aggies, we're talking about a landslide. All-American. We're talking about a landslide. One of the best defensive linemen in Auburn history out of Derrick Brown. So that's my question, guys. will the real Derrick Brown stand up? And once he does stand up, will he remain consistent? Because that's just been his, in my opinion, no one is really speaking on this, but that has been the Achilles heel for Derrick Brown in his tenure at Auburn. He has shown, and when he does at the point of attack, he likes to body slam the running back. He likes to dominate the quarterback and let him know, hey, I'm here. I really was impressed with, that was the first time in the Texas A&M game, that was the first time that I saw Derrick Brown impose his will, even to the point. I think about Nick Fairley a little bit, because Nick Fairley had an interception during his tenure at Auburn. He's one of the best that ever played the game at Auburn. Derrick Brown was very close. I was actually sitting watching the football game, and I was watching it, and I was texting back and forth with one of my colleagues in this thing, and I said, it's time for a pick six. Sure enough, Derrick Brown was in perfect position to make the pick six. He missed it, but at the same time, the fact that Derrick Brown was all over the field said a lot to where the future moving forward of what Derrick Brown can do for this defense really, really can execute for Auburn. Now, I saw some things, guys, that I thought was absolutely great from a coaching standpoint, and it has been developing over the last few weeks. Derrick Brown is starting to maneuver in different portions of the defensive line. Look at some of the alignments. One area, some packages, you'll see Derrick Brown lined up at the defensive tackle there in the interior. There were even spots, and Derrick Brown actually made a very good play out of this position. I think it was either a sack or a tackle for loss, where Derrick Brown actually lined up at the defensive end position. So what you're going to see from Rodney Garner, Kevin Steele, Travis Williams is you're going to see Derrick Brown lined up in different portions of the football field to really accentuate his skill set. And I think that's absolutely genius of this defense. Because if you're going to accentuate everything that you can out of Derrick Brown, you're going to have to move him along different portions of the defensive line. And when I saw this, I actually, watched the Texas A&M game again, and I was like, Derrick Brown was not lined up at his traditional defensive tackle position. And he's making plays at the defensive end. He's making plays at different portions of the line of scrimmage. And I think that's going to be huge. Now, here's a credit to this. You have to credit the play of Tyrone Truesdale. You have to credit the play of Coinus Miller. Even Derek Hall, one of the 2019 recruits for the Auburn Tigers, has been part of the action. So will the diversity of where you line Derrick Brown up, will that be a catalyst to help Derrick Brown be a little bit more consistent? Because if you notice, early in the season against Oregon, against Tulane, they frustrated Derrick Brown a little bit with the double teams in the interior portion of the line. Rodney Garner even talked about it in one of his interviews prior to the season. He talked about how different levels of the alignments defensive-wise call for a different skill set, call for a different level of physicality. So if you put Derrick Brown, say, at the defensive end position or more outside of the interior portion of the line, that really gives a guy like Derrick Brown, who has, really, really started to make himself a little bit more agile. He lost a little bit of weight over the course of the offseason. And this is a point where Derrick Brown can prove to be more versatile, more dominant, and it can also help to, really, really add value to his NFL draft stock. So I want you guys to pay real close attention to this week when Auburn takes on Ole Miss. Ole Miss likes to run a lot of bunch packages. They like to also do a little run-pass option with their quarterback. They have a very good running back in Colin Hill, so it's definitely going to be important for Auburn to really make Mississippi State one-dimensional like they did against Texas A&M. And part of that one-dimensionality is diversifying Derrick Brown's role along the defensive line. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast. Just an observation. I'm doing a little film study today, and just an observation of what I saw of Derrick Brown and why he was so dominant last week. Go ahead and like this video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn, where all we do is talk about these Auburn Tigers. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger War Eagle.